Lonesome Lands podcast, Lonesome Report edition. Um, I did it again. October 2nd, 2025. All kinds of stuff going on. USDA shut down. People are begging for Mexican cattle to come into the U.S., include with the screwworm or no screwworm, and a bunch of other stuff. This episode is brought to you by, once again, I don't have time to sell ads or anything else. So if you go to lonesomelands.com, you click on support, you can help us continue what we're doing and keep this thing rolling. And that's who has brought to you these episodes is people who've done that. And thanks to all our advertisers in the past. If you go to partners on the Lonesome Lands website, you will see a list of partners and how to get a hold of them and people who've supported us. All right, the government is shut down.
Yes.
Who cares? But it does affect or impact a lot of people, I guess, or I don't know. It's been what, a day now?
Yeah.
And as far as agriculture is concerned, if you go to the USDA website, a wonderful message has been left that says, due to the radical left Democrats shut down, this government website will not be updated during the funding lapse. President Trump has made it clear he wants the government open and support those who feed, fuel, and clothe the American people.
That's right.
Right on.
But we can't do that because we're too busy taking care of everybody around the world.
Yes, who send their people here for free health care, apparently.
Right.
And that's what it's about, I guess. The Democrats want in this new continuing resolution, they want to funding health care for illegal immigrants. And they're not going to vote yes until that's in there. So,
Jim, I can remember my dad when my dad was alive. He'd say, "Shad, you can only pull so much out of these cattle." Right. That was that was kind
money
of his
meaning, right?
mantra. That was kind of his mantra. You can only pull so much out of these cattle. They're doing their job. We're pulling a lot out of them. Got to appreciate it. Well, that's how I feel with what's going on with this spending. You can only pull so much out of the American people. And we're really to the limit. You were just talking
We're
about
past the limit.
we're past the limit. You were talking about your property taxes there in your state. Our taxes in Texas, our property taxes are out of control. Everybody wants a new school, a new hospital, a new park, a new baseball field, and they do that through a bond. I know in my hometown, they're wanting to uh, pass a $15 million bond, which, by the way, is the fifth one and the cheapest so far to build new athletic facilities at our school. And our county is small and poor. And it's the landowners and homeowners, which mostly the homeowners are elderly and they're having trouble putting food on the table right now. But we want all these things. And the people don't understand that we can only pull so much out of the working man or the property owners or the business owners. And we're there, man. We
Right.
can't do it for everybody.
Right. Um, on that note,
Yes, sir.
I guess this government shutdown thing is what everybody, there's plenty of news about that out there. So, but one of the things we talked about a few weeks ago was this McDonald's deal on the
Mm-hmm.
note of pulling money out of the government or
Yep.
whatever. I don't know if this is pulling out of the, nobody knows where this money going. And that's what we do here, Shad, is we've talked about Doge, and that was the Doge episode we had was our most watched episode of what we have ever done. And because that's really, there was a ton of interest in that. And we got to bring that back.
Yeah, we
Because
really do.
this McDonald's deal is the exact thing that Doge was around to stop. And if you're not familiar, McDonald's has given, I think, $200 million, partnering with the USDA and a few other of these gigantic corporations.
National
And
Fish and Wildlife Foundation.
yeah, which talk about a money laundering outfit.
Yep.
And they have and they've done that to, and a bunch of people I've seen are all excited because they're supporting farmers and ranchers and they're supporting their regenerative practices. But we've been through all this before. I've talked a lot about this climate smart commodity program. And as I've
Mm-hmm.
dug into this thing, this is the climate smart commodity program, I believe.
Mhm.
And we're going to get into it. But so McDonald's gives $200 million to USDA. USDA then partners with National Fish and Wildlife. I mean, I'm not sure how it all works, but mainly if you get into National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, which is this nonprofit, apparently, and
Mhm.
that episode we did on Doge, we went to Data Republican and we talked about how much money the U.S. government. You can just type in these nonprofits, and you can see how much money the U.S. government is giving these, and it's just a money laundering scheme. And that's what Doge was there to figure out. And I don't know what happened there, but that's not there anymore. And now we're starting to see these things creep back in because that's what these corporations do, is they're able to get back in there and keep that money flowing. And so, if you go to Data Republican, I just had it up here. Now I've lost it because I got too much stuff open. Um, Here we go. If you go to Data Republican and you type in National Fish and Wildlife Foundation on their federal grant search, the taxpayer money they received, I believe this is last year, or just the amount of grants out there for them is $28,682,080.90. And
Wow.
then, Shad, you were saying you went to the charity funding,
Yeah.
which, how do they describe that? Like this is
Well,
government
it
money that's just given as donations. So this isn't
no,
a grant for,
the charity funding is all donations, right? Private, secular, government, right? And then they split it off. But in this charity funding, the government part, and I would say this is over not 1 year, but a period of years, the total taxpayer dollars contributed to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation is $165,282,000. Okay. Now, what is really worrisome about the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation is exactly what Mindy Patterson has been talking about with the cavalry group for many years, this infiltration of nefarious organizations into partnerships which are included in public private partnerships, right? So the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation is partnering up with everybody from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife to the NOAA, your weather system, the Army Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Forest Service, and notably, USDA. And those are the government partners. Now, if you go to the corporate partnerships, it's even more alarming. They want to maximize their return. That's what they're always saying. ADM, Archer Daniels Midland, okay, AstraZeneca, AT&T, Bayer, Burger King, Cargill, the largest ag organization in the world, Cargill, ConocoPhillips, Federal Express, International, McDonald's, Nestle, Microsoft. It just never ends. And then you have their environmental partnerships, which include um, the Nature Conservancy, the Herb Family Foundation, the Lifetime Foundation,
these are all partners
Kingfisher.
with National Fish and Wildlife
That's right.
Foundation.
That's right. So they all get, so National Fish and Wildlife Foundation gets funding from all of these organizations. And then they, through a public private partnership, which I warned Secretary Rollins of the dangers of public private partnerships, then they get all of this federal money. Now, if they really cared about regenerative agriculture, why weren't they on board with this 10, 20, 30 years ago? McDonald's was the very first organization um, to, or chain restaurant organization to adopt sustainable development policies. And we know we're already reported on one gentleman coming from McDonald's to USDA that was all up in this sustainable development model.
He was the
And
Sustainable Development Officer at
that's right.
McDonald's. He was in the Sustainable Development, whatever title they had at Tyson Foods, and
Right.
now he is the, what is he doing? Overseeing food. Is he an APHIS or
FSIS. He's the head
food
of
safety?
Food Safe
Yeah.
Food Safety Inspection Service. So this partnership, taking 200 million to promote regenerative agriculture to ranchers to upshore or shore up the beef supply chain sounds to me over 4 million acres sounds to me like more taxpayer dollars going to organizations to uh, to influence agenda and policy direction in our food system, and it's dangerous as
Yeah.
hell.
And there's a lot of people excited about it, and we've been big. I mean, I'm a fan of Bobby Kennedy, but he came out and thought this whole thing was wonderful. We're going to promote regenerative agriculture. But why does the USDA, and McDonald's is going to give 200 million to do this? Well, what do
Because
you
they
think
need it.
their end goal is? McDonald's doesn't give two shits about farmers and ranchers. I'm
That's
sorry. The
right.
head people, that what they care about is PR, they care about their advertising, they care about, profits at the end of the day. And
Yeah,
their biggest investors, this whole thing from the get-go, ESG model, this
that's right.
environmental social governance. That is how this whole
Communism.
thing has been pushed. And what ESG is, according to Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, is a way to control people. I mean, that was his words. You have to force people into their behaviors. And so BlackRock is, I believe, the second largest investor in McDonald's. The largest investor is Vanguard, which is there's three main investment firms that control the vast majority of the money in the world, which means retirement funds and all of these government retirement funds, 401ks, all that stuff goes into these investment firms. And it's BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. Vanguard, I believe, is number one shareholder in McDonald's. BlackRock's number two. State Street is number three. So McDonald's is controlled by these ESG people pushing this stuff. And right now, ESG, Donald Trump won the election campaigning against the ESG
Yes.
model. He said on the campaign trail, climate change is the biggest scam ever perpetrated on the world. I watched
Yes.
a video of it this morning, him saying that. And so then we get in there and we have to be vigilant against these kinds of things. And so over the last 4 years, we had the Climate Smart Commodity Program, right, where the government took $3 billion, they gave it to these corporations, and then the corporations were supposed to hand the money out to the farmers and ranchers, right? And everybody gets their toe involved with what's going on, but except for the farmers and ranchers are at the bottom of where the money ends up, and the end goal is they have to do these practices in production, what you're told to do by
Yes.
these corporations, what they want you to do, which means fit into this ESG model. And so the partners listed on the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation for this grassland resilience and conservation initiative is Cargill, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, OSI, which is a big manufacturer of food products,
Yep.
Lopez Dorada, which I didn't know who that was, but I looked them up, and they are a supplier of the beef patties for McDonald's,
Yep.
and then Golden State Foods, which is another food supplier, but then also USDA partner in the deal. So we have just these massive corporations and then USDA in the partnership with all of them. And their goal is to um, the thing that really opened my eyes is on behalf of McDonald's USA, Qatari and Carbon Yield will provide independent monitoring and quantification of any improvements to soil health. That comes straight out of Climate Smart Commodity Program. That goes straight into the carbon market. That goes into straight into everything we've been preaching against. It is the BS end of agriculture. It is not truth in agriculture. It is fairy dust money, fugazi, as Matthew
Well,
McConaughey described the market. But this is truly just based on nothing. But it's a carbon market that is based on you have to, as they say, monitor and quantify your reduction uh, in greenhouse gas emissions. And if you look at who Qatari and Carbon Yield is, it's pretty obvious by Carbon Yield, but Qatari, go to their website, graze better, get paid, right? Ranchers Carbon Company, maximize profit, optimize grazing, access novel management technology, profit from our carbon brokerage expertise. It's a carbon brokerage company. If you go to Carbon Yield, Carbon yield works to meaningfully compensate farmers, ranchers, and land managers by building supply chain greenhouse gas partnerships with government, global brands, and cooperative. Carbon yields work touches hundreds of thousands of acres and hundreds of producers across the United States. This is the scam, the greatest scam perpetrated on the entire world that the president talked about. These companies are the ones perpetrating it into agriculture. And McDonald's takes 200 million, they throw it into the USDA, which then partners with National Fish and Wildlife Foundation.
Yep.
Nobody knows where the money ends up going,
Nope.
but it
Money's
all goes
gone.
to promote this scam, this
I can
carbon
assure you
scam.
the money is not going to the producers. They
Yeah,
are
and
not receiving that money. And on top of that, if they are, I'd love to meet one and get confirmation of it
well, I mean,
because
there might be certain producers who will, do exactly what you're told, but that's the other thing. They're picking winners and losers. And the
that's
winners of the money are the people who are going to do exactly what they're told and they're going to step in line and they're going to,
that's
put the
ESG.
EID
That
tags in their calves. They're going to monitor every step their cow takes with whatever technology and they're going to put the C-lock machines that probably this money is going to, and then they'll monitor the methane coming out of their animals, and then how do we reduce that? I mean, it is climate smart commodity program. But if you go into
well,
this,
there's no doubt about it. But here's what you have to be concerned about. I mean, obviously, these people that are participating in this, would sell their soul to the devil. But the problem with this is, and you taught us a long time ago about measure, monitor, report, and verify. Well, the verification, I have always said, the verification part of that is the most consequential because those third party verifiers that you were just talking about, their rules are not set in stone, right? The rules and one of the cruxes of sustainable development is continuous improvement, right? That comes straight out of the Soviet Constitution, continuous improvement. And if that is the mantra, then those 30 third party verifiers never have a set standard, and that standard is always changing, and you're never going to meet it. And so it's subjective in nature, and they do not and cannot um, create this balance of set standards for these producers to go to because the mantra is continuous improvement. And that is where these people are going to get in trouble because they'll never be good enough, Jim.
yeah, and that goes into what they're realizing with the election of Donald Trump
Mhm.
is that he ran on this, calling what this is what it is a scam. And so now they're trying to wiggle their way back in and keep the scam and money laundering and the ESG and the MMRV all going. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different language in here than what is in like the climate smart commodity program. But when you get into like independent monitoring and quantifications of any improvements to soil health, now, if you're not like super in the weeds of this thing, like I have been and studying this, like quantification of improvements of soil health, that sounds wonderful. Everybody wants healthier soil. That's what make agriculture. That's the whole. When you get down to the literal meaning of sustainability and all of that kind of stuff, it makes people feel good, right? But when you get to quantifications of improvements of soil health, that is how the carbon market exists. That is
Mhm.
how the scam continues. Um, and what makes this also kind of infuriating but obvious also is their key strategies include, and this is back to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, grazing management. So these are the strategies in this program. Develop and implement grazing management plans that optimize stocking rates and livestock movements and incorporate virtual fencing and other grazing infrastructure as appropriate to promote plant growth above and below ground, improve wildlife habitat, and maximize soil function. Now, what they just described there is ranching, cattle ranching. Grazing management, promote
Mhm.
plant growth above and below ground, improve habitat, which if you have a good habitat for your cattle, it's also a good habitat for wildlife, and
Right.
maximizing soil function. Like they're acting like these are all new ideas. And that this isn't, I mean, this is what cattle ranchers think about every single day.
Every day.
And they don't need a quantification and monitoring system implemented by McDonald's or the government to do these things.
But it's a massive bribery scheme. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what this is bribing these
bribing,
producers to
money
get on
laundering, all
board.
of those things.
Yeah, get on board so we can control what you produce, thereby controlling what everybody consumes. And it is listen, we all tend to make these things too hard, but this is sustainable development at its core. It's three pillars of ESG, environmental, social governance, and it is nothing more than communism and controlled production and controlled consumption. That's what it is. Period.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm all about soil health, and if we have these government
Who
programs to
isn't?
promote soil health and all of that kind of stuff, and to give better programs and different things like that, whatever. But when you get into the monitoring and quantification, because you've come from these places, right? Um, this is just going to send up red flags. And the next key strategy, grassland restoration. Restore grassland function and connectivity through reseeding native plants, controlling invasive vegetation in areas with new low density infestations of woody invasive species, and through removing and modifying fencing to facilitate wildlife migrations.
That sounds a lot like wildlife corridors.
Exactly.
Have you ever heard of the Buffalo Commons?
Yeah.
Getting ready for them.
Right. I mean, that is, and it's also, we are going to tell you where your fences need to be.
Well, they're not going to
McDonald's.
have fences. They're going to have collars on these cattle.
Yeah, that's
That's what
the
this is about. But let's
virtual
go
fencing.
back. Let's go back the last 40 years to USDA and what the USDA has promoted. And actually through equip programs that USDA has promoted to be better producers. We spread our water out through pipelines. We put more cross fencing in to better control the grazing aspects of all of these animals, whatever it may be that you're grazing. And here we are. The USDA is now partnering with the McDonald's and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to take fences out. So
Right.
we paid to put them in, and now we're going to take them out. This
Yeah.
is unbelievable.
And you could put a virtual or a collar on all your cattle. I mean, it's just, it's not what the government should be involved in, I guess. And it's
Absolutely.
just infuriating to know that we won an election. We have a USDA secretary who I am still 100, we're huge fans of, right? But the problem is we have a USDA department that is still run by these communists, as Shad would say. I try to stay away from that term because I feel like once you start throwing things around,
Well, what is collectivism? I
yeah, I
mean,
mean
that's the
it,
whole question. It's all about collectivism, right?
yeah, and controlling the citizens. Like this is all about how do
I
we
don't
get
know.
ESG back into this USDA, right? Because we have a America First president, we have a America First Secretary of Agriculture who can oversee everything, and she is learning on the go. That's she readily admits that she is, continuously learning and trying to, build this department into what it should be. But it is filled with the people that just love this kind of crap.
USDA
Um,
should be an aid to farmers and ranchers across America. They should not be a controller of farmers and ranchers across America. USDA should not have influence on price and marketing. They should not have influence on production. They should just be an aid to help educate, I guess, um, farmers and ranchers across America. But the problem is, Jim, as you well know, is that, and I think this has been confirmed through sources at USDA, is that the holdovers are collective. A lot of the holdovers are collectivists in nature, and they want these programs because they're somehow the influence is strong on these people to push all of this sustainable development. Somehow it is strong. I have my theories on how it is, but that's another example of the infiltration of these alternative thoughts into our federal agencies. And this did not start with Biden. It didn't start. It started a long time ago at USDA, and it is an erroneous example of how you know this uh the influence. All I'll say is the outside influence on our food production system is very dangerous, And I think it's deeper than we can even imagine at USDA. And listen, Secretary Rollins has no idea. She doesn't know. And what you don't know, you don't know. And that is a huge
It's impossible
organization.
for anybody. I mean, how many hundreds of
Absolutely.
thousands of people work there and they
Absolutely. Absolutely. But they are going to have to get some control of it because these people are doubling down. And this is one of the aspects of doubling down right here. They know that Trump knows that the climate crisis is totally fake and it's all about laundering money and gaining power and control over everything we produce and everything we consume. And they better, you know, learn.
yeah. And so in the last key strategy, protection and restoration of water resources and wildlife habitat. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the sentence is implement voluntary permanent conservation efforts. Voluntary permanent conservation efforts, meaning no in perpetuity, right? That's what
Yes,
you when you we think of these conservation easements, they are
that's an
those
easement.
contracts are in perpetuity, forever, permanent,
Correct.
that
Correct.
maintain working ranches and restrict subdivision and sod busting activities. Which that's great. Like we don't, I mean, restricting subdivision, people hear that and they're like, oh, wonderful. We're not going to lose it to this urban sprawl problem. But then it says, e.g., conservation easements, grass banking. And I should have looked up grass banking before, but that one kind of slipped by me. But this is a conservation easement promotion. And right now, the work by people who believe in freedom and property rights are to get rid of that perpetuity clause in conservation easements. We shouldn't have to sign contracts that never end.
Well,
Um,
Representative Hagman was really a supportive of sunset clauses on
yeah,
easements of perpetuity.
right.
Um,
And she's
but
working to get that
yeah,
to happen, while at the same time McDonald's is throwing 200 million into this federal government and nonprofit partnership, and pushing the other direction. And
well, Jim, help me understand why, if you are really truly concerned about the future of your ranch and your operation and your legacy on the land, why don't they just protect it through their own? Like, why do landowners not just protect it through their own, um, you know, airship? What do you call that?
to
Airship legacy, your will or
transition,
your
yeah.
transition. Why don't they just do it there? I mean,
Yeah, I
if
know it. I mean, think of
why
the
are they
amount.
taking money? Why are they taking, if they truly cared about it, they wouldn't be taking the money. We've done that. We haven't taken a dime of this stuff. And we have a great legacy deal that my mom and even myself, we have come up with for my own operation. And I think it will hold it all together. But I'm certainly not going to dictate what my son and his heirs can do from the grave. And I don't think it's the taxpayers, um, in the taxpayers' best interest to be paying these people to dictate from the grave. Honestly, that's what's happening here is they're dictating from the grave what they
Yeah,
can do
with
with this
conservation
land,
easements.
you
But
know.
yeah, when you look at all the money that's just poured into this stuff, is we're going to tell you how to farm and ranch, and we're going to just pour money at you, and so that we can control how you do it. And then you think of these issues like transition planning. Like, what if,
Mhm.
$3 billion went to all this crap? What if we spent $100 million promoting transition planning? Because if the USDA really cares about this, like you sent me an article this week in the Des Moines Register talking about how many farmers, what was the percentage? It was like 65%, or no,
Mhm.
65 was the age. But the vast majority of farmers are over $65, or landowners that are farming. And so there will be this transition that needs to happen to the next generation. And a lot of that will include auctions to where people like Bill Gates and before it was China that could buy farmland, or who knows who could buy it. And they end up with this, with the land. And so if we really care about farming and ranching going on to the next generation, we should promote these transition plans. And there's a guy on Clint Fisher, like, we would like to promote transition plans. I think his name is Clint Fisher. on Twitter, and you can Google him up, and he's a lawyer. I think he's in New Mexico or Minnesota, but he really focuses on making sure agriculture is going to continue to the next generation, and
Well,
he
and I think one thing that people need to understand when they sign these conservation easements that are in partnership with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, which is in partnership with the USDA, that creates a federal nexus to your land. And in that federal nexus, you give up control of many aspects of property rights and the future production rights of your land. They have the control. Listen, none of this is for free. None of it. You don't get the money to adhere to their rules for nothing. There's a reason behind all of this. And
yeah
at the end of the day, it's about control of what is produced on the land and who is going to have access to that production and even the natural resources.
yeah. And if McDonald's wants to promote ranching in the U.S., well, maybe let's promote a mandatory country of origin label on all our beef.
Well,
McDonald's is
then
one
they'd
of the
have to
beef
buy American
customers.
beef.
Yeah. Or how about this? How about you commit to buying more, quit importing so much garbage meat, for your garbage
Great,
burgers.
great point.
Same with OSA, Cargill, Coca-Cola. These are all global companies that make money all throughout the world. There's a lot of talk right now about the deforestation in Brazil because
Yep.
of agriculture.
Yep.
All of those companies are involved in Brazil,
Yes.
I'm sure. I know Cargill has a huge footprint down there. And so, maybe let's, instead of throwing $200 million to control what ranchers are doing in the US, why not let's spend it towards the stopping deforestation in Brazil and quit increasing the agriculture of Brazil and giving money to them, and
Well,
let's
they would.
focus on the U.S. If you want to focus on U.S. ranching, there's tons of ways of doing it that don't involve monitoring and quantification of
Yep.
carbon. I mean, they call it soil health, but what it really is, if you get into this Qatari and carbon yield, the way they quantify improvements to soil health is reductions in greenhouse gas emissions.
Hmm.
And if you can quantify that you are reducing your greenhouse gas emissions, well, then you can now sell your carbon credits.
Remember back in the
And
day when the biggest issue of going forward in agriculture was humane treatment of animals?
yeah, that was a long
And now,
time ago, huh?
nobody even talks
Yeah,
about
they
that
don't even care
anymore.
anymore. Well, I guess
They don't
Prop
care.
12 is happening in California.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we've gone through so many fads, it's unreal.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, and it goes to there is a lot of skepticism in agriculture about the carbon market, and they've had a lot of trouble getting people involved, and getting farmers to sign up and actually building the market because the U.S., if you go back years ago, this cap and trade system was supposed to be already implemented, and we were all supposed to, we all companies were supposed to have a cap on their emissions by now. Now that's what cap and trade is capping your emissions and trading these carbon offsets, meaning buying carbon credits to increase your cap, really, is what it is. And so, that was all supposed to be implemented by now if you listen to the environmental crazies and the people who promoted this fraudulent system. And they've had a lot of trouble getting the people of agriculture who are fiercely independent to sign on to these deals. And so now they're, keep trying to weasel their way in, and they have a president who's not for all that crap. And so this is their new way of trying to weasel their way in. And I hate to
Amen.
see I mean, people see these headlines and they're like, oh, this is wonderful. This is going to protect the environment. This is going to, do that. But if you go into this grazing management, this is what ranchers do, and if we can push that into, right now, we have actual ranchers that are working with Brooke Rollins to, fix this on federal lands and increase, grazing infrastructure, all of that kind of stuff. We don't need $200 million from McDonald's and Cargill. That's what we don't want. And this goes back to the Sustains Act too, right? Like this is a
Absolutely.
public-private partnership that is allowed
Yes.
by the Sustains Act.
Yes.
McDonald's and Cargill and OSI and all these Coca-Cola should not be giving $200 million to the USDA, to the federal government to control what's going on.
Influence policy.
Right. And to give, I mean, you talk about these hundreds of millions of dollars that have went to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And then it goes into these organizations that want, I mean, it's just money laundering. And then they continue with the scam. No, nobody's been more in on the scam than these organizations that have got hundreds of millions. It goes
Yeah, it's
National
all
Fish and
about the
Wildlife.
money.
Right.
I mean, it's all about the money.
Yeah. And I mean, I listened to this pod. So I drove to Wyoming the last couple of days and drove home. And one of the podcasts I listened to, I've talked about on here a bunch, is a meat eater. And they had this nature is nonpartisan. Have you seen that goofball? He's a young guy who started this nonprofit called Nature is Nonpartisan. And I started the podcast really wanting to hate the kid, but I didn't so much. I mean, it's not as bad as I thought he was. But where it got really out of hand, well, one of the things he said that he founded Turning Point USA with Charlie Kirk. He said him and Charlie Kirk founded Turning Point USA. And he was 14 at the time. I think Charlie Kirk was 18. But I went and Googled all that up. I can't find him. I mean, I spent a little time on Google. I can't find his name
Connection.
ain't on any of that stuff.
Hmm.
As far as founding Turning Point. But anyway, he said he like campaigned for McCain and Romney, and he started this.
Well, there's a problem.
Well, yeah, but I mean, back in the day, I mean, I voted for both those guys. I wish,
I didn't.
you didn't vote for McCain or Romney against Obama. You voted for Obama.
Oh gosh.
Anyway,
I
he
did
had
not vote
this.
for Obama. I probably did vote for McCain, but not I would never vote for Romney ever.
Anyway, he started this. I guess he called it a conservative conservation nonprofit.
Oh,
And now
cool.
he's, well, I don't know. But now I think he's just like I don't know what he is. These people that start these nonprofits and then they run around begging for money. I mean,
Well, that's what I want to do.
well, that's what Lonesome Lands could be really easily. But that's not what I want to do because I feel like it's a huge problem and I probably would be able to make way more money if I'm like promote, but I set it up as a business. I
Well,
guess
your
just to
problem
get
is
in.
is you're too much like me. You are not a taker. You're a giver, not a taker. And that's what I am. And I
Well,
am
and
not
yeah,
a
I'm
good
not full of,
salesperson.
yeah, yeah. And he talked about how philanthropy is so hard because all these Silicon Valley or whatever. I don't need to get into that. But he made this nature is nonpartisan thing, which is a bunch of BS because Donald Trump just got elected on saying that climate change is the biggest scam ever perpetrated on the globe, on the planet. And he got elected for that. And, and they're like, well, that's a very partisan thing to say. Well, no, it's not. I mean, he said the truth, and that's what this kid did. I watched this kid's video where he's saying that that's not true. So they get into climate change on this podcast, and then this Ryan Callahan says, every rancher and farmer I know is all in on climate change. They're working every day to try to do what they can to make it so much better. And I'm just like,
What?
oh, well, at first, I listened to this enough to where I'm like, I kind of like Ryan Callahan. I probably disagree with 100% of his stances somewhat. I guess not 100% for sure, but he's just very politically active. And I think the people he's probably running around with, I'm like, but I can't imagine. He's from Montana. I don't know if he was a rancher or grew up ranching or not, but he was definitely like a rural. And I'm sure he runs around with people that are all in on the. I mean, I know Tim Sheehy's been on there, and they're run a ranch that's been what's that outfit? Noble Research or what's that outfit?
The Noble Research Institute?
Yeah, so they had a big article about this Tim Sheehy's ranch and how
Oh.
sustainable and carbon and climate and all that crap. So there
Mm.
are ranchers out, the people who are all in on, like your guy at the Chico Basin. What was his name? I mean, there are ranchers out there like that. You don't want to get into that? Do I got to cut that out?
No,
You've talked about it. What's that
I am
guy's name?
I ain't saying his
He
name.
run ranch lands. Ranch lands. I'll say his name. I can think of it. Duke. Is it
Phillips.
Duke Phillips? Okay. You just had to throw that in there, so I didn't get it wrong. So I almost said whatever. There's another artist named Duke. Anyway, we kind of went off there. But I mean, that's something that needs to be talked about. And it's not being talked about because these regenerative people they hear, oh, 200 millions towards regenerative ranching. You really think McDonald's gives a shit? They don't. They want to tell people what to do, and they want to forward what their biggest shareholders, priorities are, which is environmental, social governance.
That's
Enough
right.
said? All right.
Enough said.
Moving on.
Moving
What's the
on.
next thing on there? I lost my list.
Well, the big propaganda gossip this morning from uh, our friend out in West Texas is that they're going to open the border in November.
Our friend out in West Texas. You just don't want to say anybody's name.
Corbett
Feeder
Wall,
Flash.
Feeder Flash,
Corbett
Corbett
Wall,
Wall.
our good friend
He
Corbett Wall at
reported
Feeder
this
Flash.
morning that this guy's what is his name? He's the president of a Mexican Cattlemen's Association, their version of NCBA.
I don't who
Said that
cares what his name is. Just
they are going to open the border. That they've made a deal to open the border in November, and that is not true. I've had a few calls on that.
well, it sounds just like the American NCBA, who said the only reason that the border's closed is because of politics, right? And trade issues, you know.
Well, we do have trade issues, and that's for sure.
And maybe Mexico's just like, well, we're going to throw that screwworm up into Texas and then they'll open the border.
Oh, that's
I
exactly what
think
their
there's a lot
thoughts
of
are.
people. I mean, that was kind of a crazy conspiracy when I first brought it up a couple months ago, but I guarantee there's a lot of people wishing that it was up here so that they could just open it up.
I think that's a thought in a lot of people's minds. I sat on a working group 2 days ago, talking about the screwworm and the danger and opening the border policy with a bunch of South Texans. And I'm just going to tell you right now, the cattle people ain't what they have to worry about. It's these hunting organizations and these hunters that have these huge hunting ranches along the border that are on pins and needles right now.
Yeah.
Really, really big time. And I think with the finding of this is such a complex issue because you have the trade issue and then you have the illegal activity in Mexico, which, you have the corporate control, the global corporate control, just like we do in the United States. We have that aspect of it, but then you push the cartel influence into the government and you have all of this illegal activity. Man, they just want to sell their cattle. And the truth is there is a lot of really good, wholesome, patriotic Mexican cattle producers down there that want this mitigated right so they can trade their cattle into the United States. They depend on that trade. I get that. And but that is the problem is all of this illegal activity bringing these South American cattle smuggled up through the Darien Gap, and they are spreading out across Mexico. And then you have politics playing uh, a, a part in it because the state of Chihuahua is highly conservative. The federal government, just like ours, is highly sponsored by the global cartel or the global cabal and is very leftist leaning. So they're punishing these conservative states. And it just sounds like a dadgum free for all. It sounds like, the Wild West in Mexico is what it sounds like. And I think that the Mexican cattle producers are just, and even the government are just pushing a propaganda game and starting rumors about the border opening for many reasons, right? That may be kind of a telepathic type deal where they want us to think about opening the border. It may be it.
Telepathic.
I don't know how to explain that,
I was
but
gonna
then
say
it may
you will
be
not
part,
hear that anywhere else. That
and
Mexico.
it may be a part of them trying to cause panic and confusion, market collapse. Then you have what you just said, that if the fly's there, we just as well open it. Here's the deal. Here's my thoughts on the whole deal. They found it 40 miles or 70 miles south of the border. Rollins made it clear that she was not going to open that border. And even if it does come across, which it's going to, I mean, the first hurricane, it's here. Um, I think that we should, until Mexico has proven that they are abiding by the rules of trade that we have agreed to, keep the border shut. That's how I feel about it. We know that there's places along the border where these little Mexican farmers, their animals are crossing back and forth naturally, where we don't have a fence yet. That's a problem, but that's not the real issue. The real issue is illegal movement of cattle, and that's what's caused our whole problem. But here's my suggestion. I don't care what it costs. We're going to have to fund it anyway, and I know that we can get somebody in there into Edinburgh, Texas, that has the knowledge. I mean, it's 2025, for goodness sakes. We have the best technology in the world. We could have that fly facility up and running in 2 months, not 2 years. We need to do that. We need to do that down in Mexico and reestablish the rules of the COPEG partnership. That is so important. If we could just push it back south to where we, have some winter months in here where its danger is lessened, at least from central Texas north. I think South Texas is in danger. Then we could have time to get these buildings online and the production of these sterile flies online. It shouldn't take 2 years, but as it is, I mean, they're talking like it's going to. So I was at this meeting, and it had a lot of wildlife people, a lot of ranchers, government officials. Everybody had great ideas, but the one thing I came away from is that we don't have this great working relationship with USDA. I feel like that we need to have USDA in those talks. The meeting just felt like it was Texas and USDA. We need to come together. The state of Texas needs to allocate funding right now. The USDA needs to come up. We've got the money. We're going to have to do it, finance it 100% anyway. Go get it built and get it done to protect our herd. I mean, I just think this is part of a national security issue, of protecting our herd and supporting our ranchers. So it's wild, Jim. That's all I know.
One thing I'll say is you come here, you won't find anywhere else that Mexico is telepathically trying to get us to open our border.
Well, what
This is
is
the
the
one.
word?
I
What
think
is the
you're just
word?
they're trying, it's like a PR campaign, or they're
Yeah, it's a
trying to
PR
throw it out
campaign.
there to just give us the idea, right? Or just
Isn't
get
that
us used to the
telepathic?
idea.
It's
I don't
getting
think
us
it's
used to the
telepathy.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, I thought it was perfect. Um but what I would say, I mean, what I think you're trying to say too is the campaign is on. Like
The
the
campaign's
campaign to
on.
get those cattle in here. There was a drovers video. What was that? That came out where they were all promoting. But then the other thing that Corbett said too is these Mexican people, they want to be able to move their cattle wherever they want. And USDA has put limitations on that. And do you think they're going to abide by that? No. They
But they're
already
not
aren't.
they're not they're not going to abide by our rules, but they're not even abiding by their own country's rules.
Well, yeah.
That's the why would they abide by our
And
rules?
the country doesn't make the rules. The cartel does,
The
I mean,
cartel
if you really get
does.
down to it. But the one thing, and so I went to Wyoming. gave a speech. I want to get the pushback on mandated EID tags
Uh-huh.
going. So I got into the whole timeline of mandated EID tags, and I'll have the speech out too on YouTube and the podcast. But what became obvious to me, for the past 3 4 years, as far as USDA and the cattle industry is concerned, and the secure beef supply plan, which is controlled by NCBA, which the USDA gave $445,396 to beef up this secure beef supply plan, which is really just a money. They wanted them to promote EID tags. That's what the money was given for, and that's exactly what NCBA did after the money was given. But while
Okay.
all of that was going on in 2022, that's when the screwworm got through the Darien Gap.
Yep.
And it didn't just sneak through. Well, if you look it up and say, why did, you can type in Google now, which is pretty much AI, and it'll bring up all this information. Say, why does the screwworm get past the Darien Gap? And you'll find these articles that say, I found a couple of them. They said interferences and disruptions to the sterile fly releases, which means the USDA dropped the ball on keeping it in South America during the
Not just
Biden
the
administration.
USDA, but
Well,
USDA, yes,
Copeg,
because we're COPEG.
yeah.
COPEG dropped the ball, and that is, I think we fund it 2 to 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's USDA is kind of in charge of that. And so, because we can't trust Mexico to keep it down there anyway. And we already know that. But yeah, so the sterile fly gets past the Darien Gap. Nothing happens. There's no building of a sterile fly facility or anywhere. There's no increase in sterile flies. Nothing happens for years. And it's hardly even mentioned until Brooke Rollins gets into office.
I know. I
And we
know.
have the National Cattlemen's Beef Association gets all this money for their secure beef supply plan. So it's the SBS, and they're supposed to be in charge of it. They are a complete and total failure because their number one goal was mandating EID tags for foot and mouth disease. Because it's not a matter of when, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Which I don't want to downplay foot and mouth disease because if it gets here, it will be absolutely terrible. But
No,
there have
it
been
will
no
be.
precautions of keeping it out of the country. The only thing that's been done is to mandate EID tags. It's infuriating.
Well, and this cattleman's president in Mexico came out with an article about how the EID has been a total and utter failure in Mexico. And part of that is because of the corruption. Um, he says, unfortunately, the traceability system continues to be constantly challenged to validate or attempt to validate inconsistencies in fraudulent livestock movements and origins. And I have heard from a lot of people that thousands and thousands of EID tags have been stolen from northern states, which tells me they're taking them to southern
You
states
mean in Mexico,
in Mexico.
northern Mexican state?
Yeah, northern Mexican states, which tells me they're putting them in these cattle coming across the Darien Gap, which they are not supposed to cross a certain point there, and then they're finding their way to the border. And he's actually saying that the misuse of this control and oversight framework has led to the outbreaks of the New World screwworm and has caused the United States to close the border. This
Yeah.
is the president of the Mexican Cattle Growers Association. His name is Homer Garcia. So he's saying the traceability system has been compromised, and the result of that is the New World screwworm threatening the American herd. That's a big deal.
Well, and yeah, I mean that might have more, probably has more to do with just Mexico being completely corrupt country than
Corruption.
it does that
Absolutely.
EID tags. But in the US, if you look at EID tags, there's no difference in traceability with an EID tag as there is with a metal tag at this point because they don't contain any information.
Information.
And if you have a sick cow from foot and mouth disease, you're going to have her tied down or in a chute. And so the difference in time of waving a wand over the ear and having someone read that tag off and write it down is what? A minute?
Well,
You know what I
I
mean? And then you
remember
put the
when
number in and it's the same system that brings everything up. So,
when they had that video on Cattleman to Cattleman, and they had that Mississippi State vet on there, and she goes, uh, if you want to just read instead of having a wand, if you want to just
yeah.
read the numbers off of the EID tag, that's fine too. And I'm like, well, what the hell? What's the
Yeah, and
difference?
the other thing is, I've got one right here from 4-H. So these are the numbers, and this is what's required is the EID. But this is all plastic. And if you look at a lot of those old tags, those metal tags,
Yeah,
you can't hardly read them because they've been rubbed on bunks or trees or whatever else. And so you almost have to
yeah,
etch them in if you really want to get the number. This gets
yeah.
rubbed off, it's gone.
It's gone.
And there's no information on there. I mean, I suppose
Well,
if you read it with a
still,
reader, so the only way you could get that number is you couldn't read it. You would have to have a reader. And how many people have a reader that costs thousands of dollars?
listen, there's still more information in a hot branded iron than there is in an EID tag.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's hope that stays that way. I mean, that's the goal is they want more information on those tags. The first part of the getting that information is getting the
So, what's
tags
your
on the
prediction? What's your prediction on the border opening? You think what they're saying is, I had a
No, it
call.
ain't opening.
The reason I'm asking this is because I had a call from an individual the other day after I went to DC and sat on that trade panel. That their question was, is they had heard during that trade panel that US and Mexico were actually making a deal to open the border at that trade panel. And I said there couldn't be anything further from the truth. That did not happen there. And so then another person called and I asked them about this, and they said, well, Mexico is really just putting a propaganda
Telepathy is what it is.
telepathy to get together, propaganda machine.
Right. They're
But
just
listen,
telepathically
Mexico,
trying to get you to
hey,
realize the
let-
border's going to open, so you just do it,
so
right?
they just do it. But Mexico's not the only ones that want the border open. Let's face the truth.
Oh
And
yeah, I mean that's
it's
what we're talking
it's
about, the campaign, right?
the campaign that is a big push right now
I'm trying to
politically.
find that dang USDA, but what I wanted to read the quote, but what it said when she announced that the screwworm was 70 miles away is like if Mexico doesn't abide by the rules, there will be retribution. I don't think that word was used, but that was kind of implied. Like you better abide by the rules or we're not opening this thing and there will be I mean it didn't even say I wish I could look it up, but I'll find it and I'll link to it. Well, and send me that thing you were reading about Mexico and EID and all that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'll try to link to that in
Yeah.
the description.
Yep.
All right. Well, we've been at it.
What else do you want to talk about today? I
Yeah,
mean,
and I
there's
guess
lots of stuff out in the Wild West, bro, that we could be
well,
talking
that's
about.
in Des Moines Public Schools, right up the road from me. So I'm in Southwest Iowa. Des Moines is our capital city, and they have their superintendent was an illegal immigrant who has been he has illegal he's been voting. He has like an illegal documentation.
What?
You didn't hear about this?
I heard that they arrest or they
He
arrest
tried
this?
to
They
evade
fired him.
officers. No, ICE got him. He tried to
Okay.
evade officers. They caught him. He's an illegal immigrant. He had a gun on him and a knife and $3,000 cash. They have since found out. So now there's all these protests. Oh, this guy's great. You should have not arrested this guy just because he's an illegal. He has like a criminal record. He had a deportation, whatever. They told him he had to deport earlier. He's worked in all these states. Then now they're finding out that he didn't go to the colleges that he said he did when he got hired. He
Oh
has no
boy.
degrees and stuff, and he was getting paid like 300,000 bucks
What?
to be the superintendent of Des Moines Public Schools, which is probably the biggest or one of the biggest school districts in the state. Yeah, it's insane.
Well,
He's from a country in Africa.
I guess that the school board, whoever hired him, needs to be recalled.
Oh yeah. And well, at first they came out and they were all in support of him, because they all hate,
Yeah,
they're a bunch of people. They hate ICE and they hate all this going on. But then now
right.
that it's come out that he's just a criminal and kind of a con artist, they're like, "Oh, well, we made a mistake and it's not our fault that he tricked us into hiring him." But it's kind of like they're just rolling backwards. But then you got these nuts. What's nice about it? It's actually good, I think, to show what these insane people that are protesting ICE, right? Like, because there's in Cedar Rapids, I saw there was a protest of, and you get over closer to Iowa City, it's the nuttier and nuttier people get. And also, like, Illinois seeps into us over there. So it's
Yeah.
like, um, but yeah, they're protesting this guy but it's like he's a criminal. He has a gun on him. He's a criminal with a gun on him, and he's in charge of all our kids' education in the one of
Good
the
grief.
states, and then you're going to protest that. It just shows people how nutty. It goes back to this nature as a nonpartisan thing. It's like there is one side that is completely off the rails here, okay? And so I'm going to be partisan, right? Um, yeah. So anyway, and that's the
Good
other
grief.
thing with this ICE thing. They show these videos of ICE throwing these people around, thinking that the that the people are going to be all against this, but they don't remember that 3-4 years ago. I know I through downtown Omaha, and all of the windows were boarded up. right? And all of the
Yeah.
businesses who that I had been to, as you know, I'd lived in Omaha when I was young and gone to these businesses and had good time, you know, and the business owners, they've closed up their shop and moved out because we let these riots and protests just take over our city. We had a war veteran kill himself because he was prosecuted for defending his business and defending his life. He was in a
Wow.
chokehold and he shot somebody. I wish I could remember his name. I should have it on the I can't get the name up. But there was a guy who was a business owner in Omaha. He got put in a chokehold during a he was defending his business when they were going around busting everything up.
Yeah, I remember.
He got put in a chokehold by one of the people busting everything up. He fired his gun to get the guy off of him. The guy would not get off of him, kept choking him. So he shot him and killed him. Well, then they have protested. This guy defended his own life. Obviously, he was getting choked and shot someone. And then the DA or whatever said we weren't going to charge him because it's obvious self-defense. Well, then they had these protests. And they're like, okay, we're going to charge him. Well, the guy went out to his buddies in like Seattle or somewhere and ended up shooting himself because he didn't want to go through the whole thing. And he's a war veteran who's, you know, been shipped
God,
over to the Middle East and who knows what he was dealing with as far as,
that's terrible.
you know, yeah, it's horrible. But you remember this stuff and then you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be mad about ICE throwing these idiots who are blocking their cars. And, you know, these are the same idiots that busted up our cities and drove all of our small businesses out of town. I'm not going to have any sympathy when you get thrown to the ground and cuffed. Run them over. That probably won't go over the best, but I'm tired of all this crap.
Listen, I couldn't agree.
You
I
caught me
could
in a
not
bad
agree
mood this
more.
morning with that McDonald's deal and every other thing.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I need to get back into my website because on the About Us page, I was going to say, I'm not going to. When I started this thing, which was like 7 years ago, I think it was during the first Trump presidency. And I was like, I'm not going to get partisan, right? I'm not going to tell people how to vote or get into politics that much. And then, so now as Lonesome Lands has continued, I mean,
Well, that might be
it's,
my fault. I apologize.
no, it's not at all. It's the whole like it's like the nature is nonpartisan guy. Like that was my attitude going in. But we live in a different world than we did 7 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it just goes to this government shutdown. You know, do you want to give illegal immigrants and criminals? The other thing, Logan Federico. Look at that. If
Okay.
you haven't heard of this girl, look her up. Look up her dad's speech. It's the best thing you're going to hear. And to go into this nonpartisan stuff, there was a man who had been arrested 39 times, been convicted of 25 yeah, I think felonies or violent crimes,
Crimes.
drug a girl out of her bed, put her on her knees, executed her, shot her in the head, took all of her credit cards, went out that night on a spending spree. And the guy had been arrested in 39 times, convicted 25 times. Just they don't want criminals in the jail. If you don't want to be nonpartisan, that's what you want to support. Because there's one side that wants to support that.
That's right.
I am no longer nonpartisan, very partisan against that kind of crap. People just, these illegal people who should not be on the street. It's just like the girl who got stabbed in the neck. That guy, I mean, why can't people go to prison? I guess you
That's right.
can if you, I don't know.
Tell him. Tell him, bro.
I don't know. This has been an angry episode. I don't know if that'll go over well or not, but it's just, yeah, it is what it is, I guess. I mean, that's the thing. I
Tolerance.
guess the message from this one is just watch your back on what's going on when you hear about. I mean, the main thing with that McDonald's deal, they're trying to. There's been people I respect and are friends of mine. They're like, "Oh, look how great this is." I'm like, "Well, you got to get into it." And when it first came out, I didn't get into it, but when you get into it, it's carbon market and it's the carbon
Yeah.
smart commodity program. So that's the thing for the day. We've been going long enough, I suppose, and gotten mad enough. But anyway, go to lonesomelands.com, click on support if you want us to keep ranting and raving every week. Um, I went to Wyoming Goshen County Farm Bureau. Thanks a lot for those people to having me out there. Got to sit. I didn't know Harriet was going to be there, but it was like a Hageman family reunion, pretty much. I met so many Hagemans out at that deal. And Harriet ended up being there, and I got to eat dinner with her, and that was really neat. And she's it's a neat lady. You see her on TV, and
Yes.
you just see these people at politicians, and she had these little kids running up and giving her hugs, and her family was all there, so happy to see her. And she's just it was neat to see her kind of out of her element as far as the politics goes. But and the other thing I told her, I was like, if I was a politician, I would never come to a deal like this because I was kept asking her policy stuff and what do you think about this and where's this going and stuff. And she was like, well, it's part of the job. It's what she does. And so that's why she does it. But I mean, she had a night off and she came into the Farm Bureau meeting and at dinner and supported her nephew, who's Lane, who is the president of Farm Bureau, the county Farm Bureau. And the Wyoming Farm Bureau, I think, is a great organization. We've kind of bashed Farm Bureau every once in a while, but that's mainly the
There's some
federal
really,
programs.
really, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
some of
some,
the federal policies aren't the best, but my family got their 150-year uh, farm award from Farm Bureau this summer, and from Iowa Farm Bureau, and Wyoming Farm Bureau is a great one. Probably a lot better than Iowa's, but we'll
there's
keep
some
working
really,
at it.
really good state and local farm bureaus.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great. I think Representative Hagman, she is a true freedom maker. She's my
Yes.
kind of gal. I love her.
Right. And she's all in on, I mean, she is the main person in politics pushing back on the EID mandate. And
Yeah.
so I want to get the ball rolling back on fighting that deal because it's kind of like we've got an administration in here and a USDA that seems to be on our side, but going into this McDonald's deal, there's
Well, let's
policies
get,
that are not on our side and there's still people. The whole Measure Monitor Report Verify is just sitting. It's
yeah.
like it's just sitting there waiting for the next, for the Gavin Newsom presidency to come along or whatever. We got to push this stuff back while we have a chance. And so that was kind of my
No, I
message.
agree. We need to go out there and get some sales for Lonesome Land, some advertisements. Got to start making some money. Everybody needs to subscribe,
If you
follow,
want to
share.
advertise, email Jim@lonesomelands.com. I've had some great people reach out to me and I'm just not that great at pushing. I'm not an ad salesman, that's for sure. I'll sit here and rant and rave. I guess that's what I don't know if I'm good at it or not, but that's what we're doing. So,
Well, I sure appreciate you.
well, thank you, Shad.
You're welcome.
My mother texts me and she says, there's a song out, Cowboy Praise, or a cowboy. Have you heard this? A Cowboy Praise? And she's
Somebody
like, it
sent it
reminded
to
me of
me.
Shad. And I was like, well, that's wonderful.
I'm not kidding you. I've had three people send it to me, and they said it reminds them of me. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it. I listened to
You're
it
a
when I
praying
was
cowboy. So, well, I mean, and that's what I thought too. Like, well, you talk about your prayers a lot more than I do, I suppose, because it didn't remind her of me. But
at the end of the day. That's all I got is my prayers.
yeah,
That's it.
that's all we all got. Keep them going. Keep fighting. See you
Hope.
next week.
Adios.